All right, hello everybody. It's Monday, March 6, 2017. This is Kubernetes SIG Service Catalog. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with the agenda doc. If I can figure out how to operate this computer. Okay. Can everybody share my screen? Or see my screen?
Yep. We see black right now.
I see it.
Let's see.
Oh, no, not anymore.
Okay, how about now?
Yep.
Okay. So Jess was going to demo pod presets, which is what pod injection policy is currently called. But she is busy with some stuff for GCP Next, so she's going to do that for us next week. I am going to show delete broker and unbind. I hit a couple hiccups with deprovision that I didn't have time to fix before the meeting. So I'll just go right into that. Actually, can you see my terminal window?
No, I only see the agenda.
All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll just do delete broker first. So I'm going to create broker. All right, sweet. So I created the broker. The controller has already picked that event up and fetched the catalog. So if I do get service classes, you can see we've got a user provided service in there from that broker. Now, what Kent implemented is finalization for brokers. So if you delete a broker now, we accept the delete and set the deletion timestamp on the broker, and then the controller goes and cleans up the service classes associated with the broker. There's some additional follow-on work that we're going to need to do to make sure that you can't go and make a new instance for a service class that is going to get cleaned up, stuff like that, but the mechanics of the finalization are in. So if I do delete broker, UPS broker, let's see. All right, it's already been finalized and deleted. So if I do get service classes, oops. No service classes. So what happened was I deleted that broker. The API server accepted it and set the deletion timestamp on it, but it didn't actually delete it. Controllers saw an update event where the deletion timestamp was set and went and deleted the service classes for that broker, and then cleared the finalizer out of the object's metadata and did an update on it. And when the API server saw that update and the deletion timestamp was set and the finalizer list was empty, it went and deleted the broker. So we don't have any brokers or any service classes in here. Good job, Kent. So I'm going to recreate that broker. And all right, we got that service class back from it. Now I'm going to create an instance. All right, the instance has already been provisioned. I'm going to make a binding to it. Now what we're going to see, if I get the secrets in this namespace here, all right, we've got the secret that's been created as the result of the binding. And in order to unbind, we're going to delete that binding. So I just deleted the binding and I went to go get it, and it had already been deleted. So if I go and I get the secret got deleted too. That's unbind. So this is implemented using a pattern that's basically the same as we did for finalizing brokers. When you delete a binding, the API server accepts the deletion. It sets the deletion timestamp on the object and does an update instead of a delete. Controller sees the deletion timestamp set and goes and does the work it needs to do unbind, and then clears the finalizer list and does an update. And the API server, when it sees an update for an object that has the deletion timestamp set and the finalizer list is empty, it turns that into a delete and actually deletes the object. So those are two examples of finalization.
So do we generally see unbinding as a relatively fast operation versus maybe like a deprovision might be slow?
Yeah, that's a good question. So unbind, we expect to be fast. Deprovision can be asynchronous. So there is code. Now, actually, I haven't had a chance to test this yet, but play the movie forward 3 months, and at that time, we'll have to handle long-running deprovisions. They work the same way that long-running provisions do in the API, where you'll accept, the broker accepts it and gives you back an operation ID and you have to pull, which isn't great, but that's how it works.
From the perspective of the client, though, in both cases, for the unbind, the binding object gets a deletion timestamp, and for the deprovision, the service instance would get a deletion timestamp, but the objects wouldn't get deleted until the finalizers were all done. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right. And we can talk about if there's conditions that we should set to reflect that the instance is being deprovisioned and the initial call's been made, but it hasn't completed yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the demo for that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And next up in the agenda is Vile with demo parameters, if you have it.
Oh, I have something for you.
Okay.
Let me just see if I can share my screen. Hang on one sec. My mouse is screwed up. Okay, there we go. Can you see my screen? Okay, so for this one, I am using Google.
You cut out, Vile.
Oh, that's not just me. I think we lost him.
He's still sharing. Vile, are you muted?
His video stops. I
No,
think he's.
his laptop just like locked up. At least Zoom did.
Okay. Well, we can give Vile a minute to get his laptop healthy again. I wish it a speedy recovery. We had next on the agenda was demo of integration tests, but I have not had a chance to get that like working on my laptop yet. So I moved that to next week in the agenda.
Okay. Let me try again.
Vile, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Let me try again really quick
Okay.
and see if this works. If I get the right window here. It's this one. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay. So for this demo, I'm basically going to be using the GCP broker. It's a Google Cloud Platform service broker that exposes several cloud services. One of them is PubSub. So I just used that one. I have created two. YAML files. If you look under here is the interesting bit, the parameters.
Vile, we can only see your terminal where you launched Slack.
Great. Which one? Slack. Okay, well, great. Let's, this one. Okay, here we go. Let me do this. Okay, here we go. So now can you see 3 YAML files?
Yep.
Okay, very good. So what I have done is I have installed the GCP broker already. I'm not going to show you because there's credentials in there and this is recorded. But anyways, what I care about is the instance. So if I look at the instance at YAML, there's a bunch of normal stuff here. But the thing that really matters for this demo is this parameter section. This is the section where you can go ahead and specify what you want passed to the service broker. And in this case, for the PubSub, I can go ahead and ask it to go ahead and create what the name of the topic is that I'm going to be creating. So once I create this, it basically creates a PubSub instance for me. Yay. And the more interesting bit really is the bindings. So in the binding, I'm also going to go ahead and have to specify the role. So in this case, I'm looking for a PubSub editor role. So if I were to go ahead and create this, let me do this first. Get secrets. There are no secrets. So if I do it basically created the secret for me, just like one would expect. And I basically get 7 things in there, but let's just go and look at this one, for example, which is basically the topic that I asked for it to be created for me. So that one basically shows you how they flow in through both ways. I can find a way to go ahead and see where it's somewhere in this massive blob, the editor role encoded in there, but we're not going to look at that. But so both for the service instance creation as well as service binding creation, the parameters flow through just fine and dandy.
Hey, Vile.
Yes.
I might have missed something in the past couple of days. Is the GCP broker open source somewhere?
Yes. Yeah, I was actually trying to show it when I tried to share my entire screen. It is basically under it's under github.com. It's Google Cloud Platform with GCP capitalized, and under there's a GCP service broker with dashes.
Sweet. Okay. Do you mind like putting a link into Slack?
Yeah, I'll do it right now if I can master this cut and paste rate.
Okay. And then also, does that have any async provisioning or deprovisioning in it?
I would have to look at and see. I think so. I think it's pretty complete implementation. But yeah.
Sweet. That'd be super useful for demos, as you already have said.
Yes.
+1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Any questions? I'm gonna drop out. Sure.
Just want to establish for those that are watching that the parameters field can hold either JSON or YAML, and then it gets translated into JSON when it goes to the broker, right?
Yes, correct. So also, if I wanted to, I could have, like say in the binding, I also could have had something like this. Pops up editor, if it would have been something like that instead of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so either one of these is going to work if you get the JSON right, but I prefer YAML. So.
Yeah, as any sensible human would.
Very good.
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot, Vile.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda is overview of the current state. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go over what is in MVP1 that is still open. So the first thing is some cleanups that Morgan made an issue for. They're not done. I'm assuming that they're small things. I don't remember exactly what they are. So that's what that is. Do I have a volunteer to pick that one up on the chance anybody's interested in doing that one?
Can anyone not see Paul's screen besides me?
I can't see it.
Okay, yeah. Paul, I can't see anything. I don't think anyone can.
Bizarre. Okay. Let's try that again. How about now?
Yes.
Okay. So on the off chance anybody would like to volunteer for that one and has availability to make sure that it gets finished in the next few days, I will assign it to you, or otherwise indicate that you're going to do it. Going once, going twice.
Yeah, I have some bandwidth. This is Simon, by the way. Yeah, I can pick that up and take a look at that.
Okay, Simon. All right, go in and comment on that one and say you're going to work on it.
All right.
So next one is determine the proper validation for each type. I think that is right and good to do. I think I will probably pick that one up. So I'm just going to assign myself. Next up is unit test for unbind. I think that's handled by Kent's pull request. Next one is add conditions to binding resource on unbind. I think that's handled by Kent's pull request. Let's see, do I have a scale copy of this list? Okay, the next one, 332, I thought we were gonna go ahead and close this out.
That's handled by pull request 480.
Okay, all right, great. Next one, watch and watch list functionality for TPR storage. I know you've got that one in progress.
Yeah, shameless plug to review pull request number 442.
Okay, 442. Please review. All right. Next is add storage to the integration, or TPR storage to the integration test. I think either you or Kent is going to do this one, right, Aaron?
Yeah, if it's not assigned to me, go ahead. I'll do it.
Yeah, it's assigned to you right now. All right, this looks like potentially some bug or operator error on the chart. We'll get to the bottom of that one. It's already assigned to me. Here's another one that's a bug against the chart. Get that taken care of. Next one is 436. TPR-based API server cannot update status. I think, Aaron, you and I got that one working, right?
Yeah, 442, we'll close that.
Awesome. Okay. Next one is integration test framework leak filters. I will go ahead and assign that to Jeff, how do you feel about doing this one?
Sure, that's good.
Perfect. Next is TPR-backed API server should create third-party resources in parallel. I think Simon's got this one. Accurate?
Right.
Okay. Next is handle conversion of service and plan metadata into our API. VLA's got this one. Next one is to complete out some of the fake operations in the fake broker API client. VLA, you've got that one too. Async provision and deprovision, also assigned to VLA. Implement unbind is covered by Kent's pull request. And then these next two, I understand to be a function of what VLA you're currently doing. Is that accurate?
Relay, are you muted still? Oh, I see a thumbs up.
Okay, thumbs up.
Yeah, I'll do it. I do it.
All right, so that's MVP one. If you are assigned to one of these issues, I urge you to ensure that it gets completed in the next 2 to 3 days, or if that's not going to happen, reach out to me and we will figure out a new owner for it. Any questions before we move on to MVP 2? Okay. So MVP2 is basically cleanup, add tests, rebase on Kubernetes, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go through these. Let's go through these things. Policy for handling broker deletion and deprovision. If I remember correctly, this one is like gating requests for things like doing a binding to an instance that's being deleted, right, Aaron?
Other way around, deleting an instance that already has bindings.
Okay, yeah. And deleting brokers whose service classes have instances, right?
Right. There's
Okay.
a big old description in there. It boils down to how are we going to expose it in the CLI. So we can talk about it next week, or in the meantime, also talk about asynchronously.
Okay. Next one is pull request to correct the doc. Next one is unknown to me. Aaron, do you want to say which one this is? What this one is?
Yeah, there's an unimplemented but also unused by the API server function that should be implemented for posterity. It's not so important because, again, it's not used. So it's an MVP2. It may be bumped.
Okay. Next one is to make the health endpoint on the API server run some checks. Like if you're in TPR storage mode, it should tell you whether the TPRs are actually installed. Is that right, Aaron?
It is, yeah.
Okay. Can we put an assignment on this right now? Is that going to
Yeah,
be
sure.
you or Kent?
I'll assign it to myself for now.
All right, that works. Update service instance. I think this is updating the broker API to handle update service instance. Is that accurate? Does anybody know? All right, sounds like this one bears a little bit more investigation, might be obsolete if no one knows what it is. Next one is pretty self-explanatory. Codify how async provision and deprovision responses are handled in the catalog controller. So right now, the API that you have to program against, the broker API client hides information about whether it's an async or synchronous provision and deprovision. I think it's arguable that that might be an easier programming model, but we would not like to block Go routines on async operations. So we might, when we get to this issue, decide to ripple that back to the programmer and let you set something on a status. There's a field on instance for the operation ID if we need to set it, so that later iterations of the sync loop or when you do a relist, that they'll go into the logic for where you are and try to update based on that operation ID. Next one is to add a deploying section to the developer docs. I actually have something in progress for this right now. Next one is to talk about what conditions we should have in the API. I think that we, and when I say we, I mostly mean myself, because I think I remember being the one that did this. I think we're a little premature in figuring out what conditions we needed to have in the API. So I was discussing a little bit with Jessica Forrester, who's the OpenShift UI lead, about what conditions we think we really need. To finalize that discussion, I made this issue. That's what that one is. Next one is to add events to resources. So one tool that we have beyond status to add information that surfaces to users in Kubernetes APIs are that we can create events that are associated with specific resources. And I think that we should do this. It will help you tell the story of what's happened to a broker or an instance or a binding. You can create messages, like events with messages like, hey, I actually did the provision. I'm working on this part now. And one of the nice things about events is they have event compression. So if you create the same message over and over again, you don't get a new event. You get like a counter incremented on the event that you have for that one and the timestamp updated. So you can see how long ago a certain message or a certain event was created again, which is pretty cool. Next
hey,
one.
Paul, can you write that stuff down in the issue?
I believe it is.
There's like two.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll take that as a takeaway to do.
Thanks.
So next one is enable user impersonation for brokers that target Kubernetes. What this is that if your broker is targeting the Kubernetes cluster that it's deployed into, we need a way to get user information to the broker. There's a couple different ways that we could do it. Doug's pull request for adding a context field to the request to avoid the need to use Cloud Foundry specific fields and like munge stuff into them has landed in upstream. So we could use the context field of the request to handle sending the namespace, username, service account name in the request that way. Or it could be done as parameters. Context is probably more appropriate. Next one is enable working with the API aggregator. If anybody doesn't know what the aggregator is, just really quick, we expect the predominant extension model for Kubernetes to be one where you make a new API server, and API aggregator is a thing that basically sits in front of n number of API servers and allows a client to discover the right endpoints to go to for particular APIs. If they're a smart client, or if they're a dumb client, it can proxy to APIs, but it's basically something that like you can use to work with any number of API servers that are aggregated together that present different APIs. And this issue is to get it working with Service Catalog. Next one is delegated authentication and authorization back to the core API server. So what that is when you set up Service Catalog in your Kubernetes cluster, you don't want to have to set up special auth for that thing. So we should be able to delegate back to the core API server. And there is code that already does this. It's commented out in master right now, but it is reputed to be quite easy to get working if you're running in the cluster. So Phil and I have that one to get sorted out. We know that there are a couple issues with that working in GKE. And Phil's taken point on getting those sorted out. We can probably start by just establishing that it works in a local cluster and create follow-ons as necessary for special configurations. So next one is add continuous integration that runs EDE tests. So Michael Kibe, also known as Kibbles and Bytes, has done some work to get a Jenkins working for us. I am checking a couple things before we turn it on. Initially, what it's going to do is just run the same flow that is in Travis. But the advantage of having this Jenkins is that we'll be able to run a Kubernetes cluster in it and write end-to-end tests that actually exercise stuff in C2 in a Kubernetes cluster and verify that the whole shebang end-to-end works. Next one is add configuration control plane for admins to set things like maximum number of retries, maximum timeout, et cetera, et cetera. We actually have the foundation of this already. There's a component config API that is in our project. We aren't using it yet, but basically this issue is to make it usable and wire it up. Next one is support for the resource formerly known as pip. In order to do this, we need to rebase onto the 1.6 candidate version of Kubernetes, which is a pretty big task. But it's important, I think, to get to having the pod preset stuff integrated before KubeCon, because that's a big part of the value proposition of Service Catalog. So next up is to host open API docs somewhere. What this is if you go to kubernetes.io and you click on docs, you can get to the API documentation that shows you, the fields of our API types, stuff like that. We already generate this information, but it's not hosted anywhere. And I think it would be really awesome before we have a big influx of folks into this project, which I expect to happen after it's shown at KubeCon, if we had docs that we could point people to that were online so they didn't have to clone the repo or dig through types.go. Next one here is finish the use case documentation. And this is pretty much what it sounds like. I think everybody has agreed in the past that it's easier to ensure that your use case documentation stays up to date from the beginning, which might not seem like it, but we're still at the beginning of this project. And this is basically just to make sure that our use case docs match up with what we're calling MVP does. Next up is we have a script that verifies that bash scripts use the error exit flag, which for those of you that don't know bash, means that if a command returns an error, the script exits. It's something that's one of the things that is considered a bash best practice. this is to move it up to the repo infra repository, which I think is a good thing to do, and start consuming it from there. Next one is to enhance the href check in our repo to check anchor links. It doesn't check anchors currently. Next one is make target or suggested DRM for setting up kubectl when using our API server. So what this is that right now you have to maintain either a separate kube config file or a separate cluster in your existing kube config and switch between them, or otherwise munge around with your kube config setup. What I do is I use the dir env tool to maintain a separate kube config that just lives in my service catalog directory and automatically gets used for kubectl operations to point to our API server when I demo. And this is just to document something. This might be obsoleted if we can, if we find that aggregator works very reliably and there's an easy way to deploy in 1.6 using the aggregator. Next one is that self-link for brokers and service class, I think is affected by this too, is incorrect. It's missing a slash. This is to fix that. Next one is document what's in contrib, which is something that is good to do. Next one is that our image names that we produce are like not knowable as being intimately related to service catalog from the name. They have like really generic names like controller manager and API server. So we should prefix them with the service catalog name. Next one is to fix the upstream code generation tools. So they generate code that passes lint checks. I think someone's already working on this from IBM. Next one is to fix the service catalog link verification. I actually think this one is done. But we can go take a pass through that and make sure. So next one is an older issue. Actually, it's not that old. Don't build and deploy contrib stuff by default. This is just like some proposed changes to make targets and what happens when you do make build. I'm sure we can sort through that. Here's another one that's for the make file. Evaluate clean targets and what each one of them should clean. Next up is broker from contrib examples walkthrough doesn't load. We can actually probably close this one since that's using the old TPR stuff, which we're not going to release. I'll take that as a takeaway. Next up is to figure out the SSL strategy for deploying this stuff in Kubernetes. Kent and Aaron and I have taken a look at this, mostly Kent. There's some gaps that we need to close, and this issue is to do it. Next up is further refactors to TPR-based storage interface. I think these are cleanups from Aaron's refactoring. Is that accurate, Aaron?
Yep.
Okay. And then next one is that big gnarly rebase onto Kubernetes 1.6 candidate. I have assigned this to myself, and I wanted to do this week. I'm starting to think with the other things that are open that it's going to be an early next week thing, which, I mean, it is what it is. I'm trying to get budget for Jeff Peeler to come and sit with me while I do that so that we can spread some of this knowledge around. And after this is done, we'll be able to use the pod defaults and the upstream EDE framework. There's a lot bound up in this if folks want to take a look at the issue. Next one is add a verify script that checks for JSON tags and versioned API types. I have something that does this upstream. If someone wants to take this when the time comes, I can point you to where it is, and you can probably reuse that and stick it in repo infra, and we can start consuming it from there. Next one is add additional information to condition messages. If folks have looked at the controller, currently there are some pretty generic user-facing messages on conditions that we should probably add things like names and coordinates of involved objects to. That's what this issue is for. Next is add utilities to give uniform representations of objects for logging. So what you will find in a project that has more than one person working on it, and sometimes even when there's just one person, objects represented in logs, the same object will have like 3 or 4 different representations. It makes it hard to read the logs. It makes it really hard to write anything that scrapes logs. And we should have just like a uniform way that you refer to objects by under, probably there's like 1 or 2 different conditions where you have like a short way and then a long way that prints the whole object, whatever. That's what that is. So that's what we have for MVP2. I urge you, if you're going through and working on stuff and you find something that's like a cleanup, create an issue, and if you can't set the milestone, suggest that it go into MVP2. MVP1 is now overdue, so I'd like to not add any more issues in MVP1. Let's just put them in MVP2 as they're created. So that's what is on the agenda today. Do we have anything that folks want to discuss? There's about 16 minutes left. Otherwise, we can just get back 15 minutes.
Something real quick I just thought of. So I know we've talked a lot about conditions, but has there been any discussion about putting certain things into events?
Yeah, we have an issue for that in MVP2.
Okay. Sorry, I missed you go over that one.
That's okay. All right. If there are no questions, I'm going to stop the recording and you can have 15 minutes